This is the Recruiting Guy Podcast. And now, here's your host, Richard Davenport.
Welcome to the post-signing day podcast. We're going to go over the signing class, which to me, be honest with you, was just pretty beyond impressive, considering Coach Pittman and his staff had a late start. Coach Pittman was hired on a Sunday and had about 5 days to get kids together and have some official visits the following weekend, which was the last weekend of the contact period, of which you could have kids on campus before basically a month-long dead period where you couldn't have kids on campus. So for them to finish up with 9 signees early was quite impressive. And then obviously yesterday finish up with 12 signees. 11 signees and still one commitment. You got to be impressed because the class went all the way up to number 29 nationally, according to ESPN. Tom Lemming, who's been in this business for more than 41 years, has the class at number 26. This is a type class that you would almost predict for Arkansas in the past under normal circumstances with a staff being on campus for 2, 3, 4, 5 years because Arkansas traditionally has finished anywhere from 20th to a little over 30 in the national rankings. But to finish 26th in Lemmings and 29 in ESPN's rankings when you're a new staff and you have to deal with the early signing period, pretty remarkable. Like I've always said, the talent pool for February signing day is decisively much smaller. About 85% of the kids sign during the early signing period, so you're really scrambling trying to find guys that you think that could play SEC football, and Coach Pittman said he's just not going to sign guys to fill up a class, and I don't think he did. But let's just start off with the quarterback position. Everybody's fired up about Malik Hornsby from Missouri City, Texas, Fort Bend Marshall High School, 6'2", 180 pounds. The number 9 dual threat quarterback in the country, according to ESPN. The 228th overall prospect in the country, 38th prospect in Texas. Obviously, he's a 4-star. Every service has him as a 4-star except for one. He threw for over 2,300 yards, had 29 touchdowns. And what really is impressive, he only had 2 interceptions. And he did the same thing as a junior. He only had 2 interceptions while throwing for close to 2,000 yards, 23 touchdowns. That is just making great decisions and not forcing things. And for a high school kid to only throw 4 interceptions in 2 years, that's about as impressive as you'll find. But obviously, everybody looks at him as a guy that can make things happen with his feet, and there's a reason for that. He's recorded 10.88. In the 100 meters and 22.39 in the 200, and you look at his film, and he can absolutely fly. Arkansas beat out Baylor, Texas A&M, Purdue, and others. Baylor was recruiting him. The new staff was recruiting him as an athlete, and that pretty much decided his fate with Baylor. He canceled the official visit with them, and so. You know, you can recruit off of Malik, and when I say you can recruit off of him, you can talk to future playmakers in the 21, 22 classes and say, hey, we got Malik Hornsby, because most of these kids know one another or know of one another, and when you're able to sign a 4-star prospect like Malik and kids can go and look on Huddle and look at his playmaking ability. That excites them, and they want to play with guys like him. Running back Dominique Johnson, 6'1", about 220 pounds, from Crowley, Texas. Flipped from Missouri to Arkansas in the early signing period. He's one of those guys that's pretty physical. Probably not a guy that's going to go 80 yards for you, but can definitely has enough speed to be effective and be a guy that can be especially a fourth quarter type running back. You try to wear down a team, and here's a guy that's extremely physical. You look at his film, he just breaks tackles left and right. Good pickup there. Jalen St. John decided on the Razorbacks yesterday. Well, actually, it was long before that. He had made the decision, but he announced it on signing day, 6'5", 320 pounds. Most say he's a 3-star, but Tom Lemming has him as a 3-star plus. Was a former Missouri commitment, flipped over to Arkansas, which is really kind of a no-brainer because he had committed to Coach Odom and Coach Brad Davis at Missouri, and it only made sense with them showing up at Arkansas that he would follow, and that's exactly what he did. And he had an impressive offer list: Missouri, Florida State, Mississippi State, Auburn, and several others. Marcus Henderson from Memphis University High School. If you're a subscriber to Ho Hog Sports, you knew that I was feeling really good about Arkansas landing him about 36 hours before signing day. Got some good information saying that he was coming, and obviously he did. 4-star prospect by most services. Tom Lemming actually has him as a 4-star plus, and thinks that he's a guy that could, maybe see the field as a freshman. We'll see about that, but he played in the Under Armour All-American game, and he was a team captain for Memphis University High School. Just a well-rounded young man, and obviously has a size at 6'4", about 300 pounds plus to play on the line, and we'll be interested to see how he develops over the next few years. But all three of the offensive linemen that Arkansas signed are guys that have very good frames and are big enough right now that you don't have to pack on a lot of weight for them going forward. But obviously they'll change their bodies through time. At Arkansas, Ray Curry Jr., who signed in December, 6'5", 310 pounds, Memphis White Station High School. Tom Lemming has him as a 4-star prospect. Most others had him as a 3. He was also a former Missouri commitment and was obviously won over by Coach Odom and Coach Davis. And the thing with him and Marcus Henderson, both of those guys visited Arkansas when Chad Morris was here, so they kind of knew what they were getting into, at least from a campus standpoint and facility standpoint. So I think that definitely helped land those guys. Tight end Colin Sutherland, 6'5", 240 pounds, from Flower Mound, Texas, Marcus High School. Consensus 3-star prospect, got 35 receptions for 329 yards and 8 touchdowns. Some people may remember his one of his older brothers, Keaton, who was recruited by Coach Pittman before signing with Texas A&M back in 2015, and then also he had 2 older brothers before Keaton that attended the University of Arkansas. So he had been going to Arkansas and going to Fayetteville ever since he was 10 years old, and he called Arkansas his dream school. So a guy that definitely has a nice frame, comes from an athletic family. It was a Nevada-Las Vegas commitment, and then he flipped over to Arkansas on signing day. Defensive line to Chard Stewart. Love this kid all along. I've always thought that he has a chance to be special. Wrote about him about 2 years ago, and in the headline I said he was violent, and I say violent in the way he is on the football field. When he hits a ball carrier or a quarterback, he punishes them. And then you add in his explosiveness off the line. I think that he's one of those guys that you could see maybe playing as a as a freshman. I said that probably about a month ago, I think in another podcast. But just a very productive kid who had 23 tackles for losses, 17 sacks, 14 quarterback hurries. Just was a mismatch all year for offensive tackles this past season, but ran a legitimate 4.61 at the one of the opening regionals. Actually, it was in St. Louis, and at the time, he had the nation's sixth best combine rating of 131.76 that he registered at that combine. And excuse me, and the other five guys were all defensive backs, running backs, and receivers. So here's a guy that was putting up numbers that's very much alike skill guys, but at 224 pounds in a defensive end. He eventually finished number 9 nationally with that rating, which is pretty remarkable too. 330-pound bench press, 500 squat, 330 power clean. What's not to like about him? Blaine Toe, another guy that will play defensive end for Arkansas, 6'6", 244. He ran a 4.88, and remember these are laser times or electronic times that both Jashad and Blaine ran. Blaine ran his 4.88 at the Dallas Open and Regional back in the spring of his junior year. But he's a guy that could play tight end possibly. You know, obviously with the short numbers there, he could possibly play there. But I think he's going to stick at defensive end, and he could possibly grow into a defensive tackle. I can imagine with his athleticism and his speed and his strength. And I said this speaking to the Fort Smith Razorback Club on Thursday. His strength is in the bench press is one of the more remarkable things I've ever heard in 15 years of doing recruiting. And I say that from the standpoint that he bench pressed 400 pounds, and this guy's 6'5", 6'6", long arms, a lot of length. You just don't see a guy bench press 400 pounds in high school, much less with that type of length. And he did that when he was 16 years old. So quite remarkable. Andy Boykin, great late addition by this staff, 6'3", 301 pounds from LaGrange Troup County High School. Will play, I think, inside. He says he could play defensive end too, and I wouldn't doubt that. And he may, because you go back to Coach Odom's background. He likes playing out of the 3-4 or 3. Say 3-2-6 or something like that. So he could play defensive end. Very athletic kid who played outside. Played linebacker as a sophomore. So that says a lot about his athleticism. Chose Arkansas over an impressive list of offers, but just a joy to talk to. You're going to love getting to know Andy over the years. Julius Coates, 6'6", 270 pounds from East Mississippi Community College, defensive end, early enrollee, did not visit Arkansas. He wanted to come to Arkansas because he wanted to play in the SEC. He's originally from Illinois, and if you talk to people in Fayetteville, they tell you he's what you're looking for in the SEC at defensive end. He passes the eye test big time. Eric Thomas, defensive end, 6'3", 230 pounds, runs a 4.7 from Pensacola Booker T. Washington. Could be one of those diamonds in the rough. Very, very productive as a senior and a junior. He had 27 tackles for losses, 14.5 sacks as a senior, and he had 4.5 sacks in a postseason All-Star game. So, hey, you're in an all-star game. You're playing against some of the best of the best. So he was able to dominate even in an all-star game. His father's about 6'7", so definitely has a possibility of growing more. So keep an eye on Eric on down the road. I'm not going to say he's going to play next year as a true freshman. Wouldn't rule it out, but I think in a couple of years you could see a guy that a lot of people were going, "Wow, I'm sure glad Arkansas got him." Quellin Mcgee, 6'4", about 255. His coach says runs a 4.6. He's from Fort Valley, Peach County High School in Georgia. I think if and I've been asked this a couple of times, and I've been consistent in saying I think he could be the surprise of this class. Reason I say that because he could move inside, and I think he will. I think you'll eventually see 6'4", 290, 300-pound defensive tackle with very, very good athleticism. He's only played football for 2 years. Keep an eye on Jaquelin. Linebackers, Cottrell Wallace, really like him, 6'6", about 212 pounds, runs about a 4.7, very productive outside linebacker for the Bryan Hornets, who won back-to-back Class 7A state titles. He plays basketball too, so he's not in the weight room a lot. I think that's what makes him even more intriguing. It's because he hasn't been in the weight room, so he's going to add 20, 30 pounds with no problems at all, and obviously continue to get bigger, stronger, and faster. And I think the sky's the limit for him. He's got all the tools that you're looking for a guy, an outside linebacker. Chose Arkansas over Oklahoma State and Nebraska, Virginia, Houston, and several others. Kealan Burrell, linebacker from Harvey, Louisiana, Helen Cox High School, 4.7 speed. Pretty much a consistent 3-star prospect who was a former Texas San Antonio commitment. He was all-class. He was the Louisiana Sports Writer Association Class 4A All-Stater as a junior. Had accumulated offers from Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Virginia, and others during the recruiting process. Very good speed. That's one thing that jumps out at you on his film. J.T. Towers from Joe T. Robinson, 6'4", 210 pounds, 4'6". He registered 171 tackles as a senior, 47 tackles for losses, 11 sacks, and this was his first year to ever play the position. That's even more intriguing. He'll be the 5th Joe T. Robinson prospect on scholarship on the roster at Arkansas. So you can say Joe T.'s got something going there. Jacory Turner, linebacker, 6'2", 205, runs a 4.61, and that 4.61 was also registered during an opening regional, so that's legit speed. He's from Woodward Academy in Atlanta, a consistent 3-star prospect. Recorded also an impressive 4.3 flat shuttle, which shows agility, a change of direction, and that's 4.3 is. Well, a lot of times you'll see skill guys running that, and here's a guy that it's a linebacker, also a 32-inch vertical. Cincinnati, Boston College, Rutgers, Louisville, some of his offers. Defensive backs, Miles Slusher, 4-star, pretty much rated by everybody. Tom Lemming has him as a 4-star plus prospect. Was originally committed to Oregon. Really came down to Oregon and Arkansas. And Nebraska and Arkansas, and obviously he picked the Hogs. Was definitely won over by Coach Pittman. Also, I think playing in the SEC was a huge draw. Early enrollee there, Kyrie Johnson, 6'1", 183, cornerback from Connecticut, 4.49 speed, 4.49 speed. And a 3-star according to most everybody, except for one service that has him as a 2-star. But Rutgers and Georgia came in late and tried to offer him and try to get him away from Arkansas. But he visited unofficially back in the fall for the Mississippi State game. That kind of got their wheels rolling. And then once Coach Pittman and them got on campus, they extended the offer, and it was pretty much a done deal because he loved loved Arkansas. He wants to major in business, and Sam Walton Business College definitely was a huge draw for him. Nick Turner, another cornerback from New Orleans, brother Martin, 6 foot 184, good size, 4.3 speed. He's been clocked at 4.3 several times. The 4.34 was at a college camp. I can't remember where. I can't remember off the top of my head, but just one of those guys just has great speed, and that's what you got to have if you're a defensive back, a cornerback in the SEC. Was originally committed to Georgia Tech, but reopened things on December the 2nd when he was visited by Coach Pittman for an in-home during the December contact period. That really sealed the deal, he said. Athlete Darren Turner could play safety, could play receiver. I think Coach Pittman said they'll start him out at receiver. 6'4", 215 from Memphis Central. Rated a 4-star by most. One service has him as a 3-star, but he's on campus right now. He was a 4-year letterman, committed to Arkansas under Coach Morris. Reopened things after Coach Morris was let go, and then made an official visit to Arkansas under Coach Pittman, sealed the deal, and he's on campus right now. Again, versatility, that's what he brings at 6'4", 215, and gives you a possibility of playing him on either side of the ball. Overall, it's truly amazing that Arkansas is able to have a class inside the top 30 by ESPN, number 29, and then Tom Lemming at number 26, considering a late start, early signing period. Probably one of the more impressive coaching changing recruiting classes that I've seen. There might be some others that did as well, maybe even a little better, but not too many. This is about as good as you can get under the circumstances, and I think Coach Pittman, realizes that to a certain extent, but he's never going to be happy till they're a top 20 or beyond class. There's no doubt about that, and it's not lip service when he says he expects to be competing right up there with the elites, and I wouldn't put anything past him because he's going to demand out of his staff what he demands out of himself, and then he's going to hold them accountable, and I think that's going to lead to really good recruiting classes going forward. That's it for the post-signing day podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll try to catch you next week.